All right, welcome everyone. Thank you, friends, for joining. This is our last pre-webinar hosted by Prevention Plus Wellness, located in beautiful and historic St. Augustine, Florida. If you've not been here, please check it out. Even though we were up, my wife and I, a week ago in Virginia and learned all about, or relearned in a lot of cases, but learned also some new things about U.S. history when we were in Jamestown and Colonial Williamsburg and Yorktown. Amazing, amazing things there. The history, primarily of the English colonization. Um, St. Augustine, 1565, was colonized, but for all of that by the Spanish. Great American history. Some good, some bad, but all amazing. So come visit us in St. Augustine. Now, because it's the last, by the way, I'm Dr. Chudley, we're CEO and founder at Prevention Plus Wellness. And since this is the last webinar for 2025, and it is the holidays, it is Christmas, I set something up for your holiday enjoyment. Let me see if I can do this without screwing up. There it is. There's the Christmas tree, the holiday tree, whatever you want to call it, for your Christmas and holiday enjoyment. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, let's see if I can put this back without. Maybe I should have tried that. Well, let's see if I can get this camera back so we can begin our webinar. Uh, yeah, I did it. I did it. I did it. There we go. Just adjust it. All right. Thanks for that. And we're ready to rock and roll here. As always, recording, or most often, we're recording the session. I will send everyone here and everyone who's registered a link today with the recording, with the slides, and with the CEU certificate for 1 hour. No worries. Don't need to reach out to me. I'll reach out to you. So we got a lot of slides. Let's keep going and get at them. So here's what you'll be doing today with us, all of us together. We're going to be reviewing changes in the United States adult alcohol use patterns and what's impacting them, what's going on with regard to these changes, why might they be changing. Secondly, you all are going to be examining trends in U.S. adolescent alcohol and other drug use. And lastly, and this is sort of spread throughout this third objective, we're going to discuss implications for substance use, implications of the substance use trends for prevention and for public health. That's where I think the rubber meets the road. That's the most important thing for everyone. So we'll be discussing that. Now, at the end of today's session, we'll have an open opportunity for you to comment, make questions. If you have comments and questions, go to the Q&A, not the chat, but the Q&A in your toolbar and drop in those, and we'll look at those at the end of today's session. So we got an hour together, a little more, a little less, whatever. I'm here flexible today. So whatever you need, I'm here for you. And we do have 2 webinars already planned for January, believe it or not. Yep, next year. We already have 2 webinars. So if you want to be notified on them, go to our website, preventionpluswellness.com. There's a toolbar along the top of the homepage. Drop in your name and your email, and you'll be notified of upcoming free webinars. So let's start, first of all, by talking about U.S. alcohol use. So earlier this year, excuse me, there was a U.S. Gallup poll on American adults in their drinking patterns, and it found that that the alcohol consumption pattern had dropped to an all-time low, fallen 54%, down to 54% was the number of adults that reported using alcohol. This is the lowest level in 90 years. And this Gallup poll also found that the number of drinks consumed by American adults in the past week was 2.8 drinks on average in a week. And that was the lowest in the polling since 1996. So we can see this trend, and you can see here in the slide. I don't know if you can see this slide as well as I can, but they started the polling back in the what did we say, 40 or something, 1940 or so. And now, if you look ahead to 2025, it's the lowest ever. Back in the 1940, looked like it was about, I don't know, it's hard to say by looking at the graph, but a little bit higher than 54, which it is right now. So you can see the ups and the downs, but mostly the ups. You can see the highest peak was up to 70% of adults drinking alcohol, and about 75 or so. So what's going on? What could be impacting this change in reducing or lowering or declining alcohol consumption by American adults? So one thing is increased perceived harmfulness. So the Gallup poll, in addition to asking questions about alcohol consumption, also asked questions about perceived harmfulness. And this was the first time that most Americans, in fact, 53% of them said drinking in moderation, drinking in moderation, that's defined as 1 or 2 drinks a day, is bad for one's health. And at the same time, the other side of that coin, just 6% said it's good for your health, that alcohol is good for your health. So we see this decline, particularly among the young adults. In fact, young adults, 66% said moderate alcohol consumption was bad for your health. So we see this changing not just in alcohol consumption, but changing perceptions of harmfulness. That could be a factor in why alcohol consumption is declining. And there's the chart that the Gallup poll showed. The dark line on the very bottom of the chart shows the percentage of Americans that think alcohol is bad for your health. And you can see it drop down all the way down to 6%. That's good for your health. I'm sorry. That's 6% said that alcohol is good for your health. That's the dark line. You can see it started up at like 22, 25%. And now it's all the way down to 6% of U.S. adults saying that alcohol is good for you. And then the one in the middle is the one that says the dash line showing that alcohol is bad for you. It's gone from, I'd say, about 28% or so, all the way up to 53%, highest ever, 53%. The majority of adults in America think that alcohol consumption is bad for you. Moderate alcohol consumption at that. So awareness of alcohol consumption's risk could be a factor as well in influencing the perceived harmfulness. So we see that perceived risk of alcohol harmfulness is greater now. There's been widely reported new research which states that no level of alcohol consumption is safe for health. In fact, even drinking moderately increases the risk somewhat for cancer, heart disease, that's under number 3, injury, and permanent premature death. And so even moderate consumption appears to be, and that's quite a reversal of what we used to report in public health and prevention and substance use, where there was the belief that in the research appeared to show that moderate consumption was healthy for you. Now that's quite a reversal. So awareness of the risks could be influencing perceived harmfulness, which could be influencing actual consumption. So also another factor in possibly explaining the decline in alcohol consumption is the changing population demographics, particularly among young people. We see changes in racial and ethnic diversity of young adults in America, specifically increases Latino, Asian, and multiracial individuals who typically drink less than whites and Caucasians, typically drink less. So we see more of these. That could be another factor for the decline in alcohol consumption. Another factor, non-drinking trends. Non-drinking alcohol appears to have become more popular, particularly among young adults. And this is reflected in such trends as you probably have heard of this or know of this or seen this in the media, sober curious and mindful drinking. And this is about these movements, if you want to call them that, are about exploring one's relationship with alcohol, taking alcohol breaks, setting drinking limits, choosing non alcohol beverages in social settings over alcohol beverages, spending time with like minded people who are not drinking, and exploring alternatives that don't involve drinking, particularly social alternatives. So, all of these things, I'm reminded back years and years ago when I first started after receiving my doctorate from the University of Wisconsin and my first academic appointment at the University of Arkansas. Working on college drinking information. In fact, I even created a handbook, which is quite popular way back then, and a lot of it discussed this, where they were steps for or tips for moderate drinking or even abstinence. And a lot of this was covered. It was how to and suggestions for how to reduce alcohol consumption. But I think the sober curious concept has gone a little bit further than that if you look at item number 4, because they also highlight now, on which I think are new benefits that weren't discussed back in earlier decades, and that is that non-drinking is associated with mental clarity and greater focus, improved sleep, financial savings, and improving personal growth. So these, in my opinion, in my experience, the benefits of non-drinking were not emphasized as much as under number 3 item, the mechanisms for drinking less or taking breaks from drinking. Sober curious young Americans, you may have seen these observances such as it's coming up, Dry January, Sober October. These are people, and by the way, people then sharing those experiences on social media has, I think, really increased awareness of this concept of of sober curious. And researchers have even called these events where individuals, again, largely young adults, take breaks from alcohol or avoid alcohol. Researchers are calling these temporary alcohol abstinence challenges, or TAAC, temporary alcohol abstinence challenges. And so we're seeing that in the media. We're seeing again more discussions on social media about these events like Dry January. Now, another factor, and we're looking at all these different factors that could be could describe or explain one part or another or together. And another is that cannabis is being used as a replacement for alcohol. This we're seeing particularly among college student young adults that seem to be switching alcohol for cannabis. And by the way, there's a link there to that first bullet. So a lot of these slides have links, so you can click on those when you get these slides today if you wish, and then further explore that source of information. And certainly legalization of cannabis across the country has played a role in increasing availability and the marketing of the benefits of cannabis. So this is certainly influencing young adults' use of cannabis in place of alcohol. By the way, let me just give you a quick story of that. I was up in Minnesota where one of my brothers lives, and his son-in-law works at a what do they call them now? It's not a brewery. It's one of these mini breweries or whatever they're called. I can't remember the term. Anyway, they make their own beers, and it was some festival we went to, and we saw it, and I was told by my brother's son-in-law that the beers are not as popular up in Minnesota. This happened to be a Minneapolis area. The beers were not as popular, the alcohol beers. And by the way, they had non-alcohol beers too, which were somewhat popular. I don't know how popular in relation to the alcohol beers, but the point I wanted to make was that they also had THC infused beverages, and those were the most popular, interestingly enough. So, and these were mostly young people that are drinking, and so they were choosing, apparently, according to that feedback on that brewery, was that the THC infused beverages were much more popular, or more popular, I don't know how much more popular than the alcohol beverages. Very interesting. I've not seen that here in Florida. I don't think we have that in Florida. I'm sure different in every state. But and then you were told you couldn't purchase an alcohol beverage and a THC beverage. Of course, they were checking for that. But they were trying to let you know that you shouldn't be mixing those two, drinking one and then drinking the other. But I'm sure some individuals do that, which increases the risk for harm. All right, moving on. Greater levels of addiction we're seeing in the cannabis arena among young people. So daily consumption of cannabis has, for the first time ever, surpassed daily alcohol use in America. So this is believed to be an enormous change in rate of consumption, particularly daily or near daily use. And cannabis use now appears to be on, according to this source, a fundamentally different scale than it was before legalization. And of course, daily and near daily use is going to be associated with addiction, with cannabis use disorder increasing. What about adolescent drinking? We talked about young adults now. Now let's switch to adolescents, which many of you work with younger people. So adolescent alcohol consumption has been declining. That's the good news. You probably already know that. And that started, I'd say, in the late 90s, and it's continued on to date. And the declines in adolescent drinking uh, include not just the prevalence of use, but also measures in binge drinking, heavy drinking, and drunkenness. That's really good news because those patterns of drinking, binge drinking 5 or more drinks in a row, in a setting, heavy drinking, drunkenness, are obviously associated more with negative outcomes from substance use and addiction. So let's take a look at the trends of adolescent drinking in particular, looking at the monitoring the future data from 2025. Now we're going to look at trends in adolescent drinking and other drug use. So we'll see how they parallel the adults and young adults that we looked at in the Gallup poll. So, and as I said, we're seeing the trend for alcohol use declining from 1990s down all the way to today. So we see a significant decline in both 12th and 10th grade lifetime and past 12-month use. For example, for 10th graders, a decline in past 30-day use as well. So we can see these decline. You can see that under number 3 from 2000 2004, past 12-day prevalence has decreased from 73% to 42% among 12th graders. That's an amazing decline from 2000 to 2024. Prevalence of 12 months, in other words, alcohol consumption in the last 12 months for 12th graders went from over 7 in 10 to just over 4 in 10. Now, still, 42% are drinking in the past year for 12th graders. So there's still work to be done for prevention providers, but that drop in 4 years from 73 to 42 among 12th graders, that is a tremendous drop. And from 65 to 26 in 10th graders, and yet still 1 in 4 10th graders using alcohol in the last year. And for 8th graders, from 43% to 13%. So drops in past 12-month use. How about binge drinking? Same kind of thing. We see binge drinking is lower. It's declining in 24. Then in 23, for example, all 3 grades, 12th grade, 10th grade, 8th grade. So and they say it's a slow but steady, but I'm not sure how slow it is. If you look at from 2000 to 2004, you see it's fallen from I think a rather dramatic drop in binge drinking, 30% to 9%. So binge drinking is down to 9% among the 12th grade population. That's an amazing drop. 1 in 3 to less than or 1 in 10 12th graders are reporting binge drinking. And then you can see 24% to 5% 10th graders, 12% to 2% 8th graders. And again, binge drinking is 5 or more drinks in a row in the last 2 weeks. How about being drunk? Same kind of thing. We're seeing this prevalence of being drunk in the past 12 months decreasing, declining, particularly in 10th grade, a longer term decline in all 3 grades. And so same pattern, binge drinking going down, prevalence going down, drunkenness going down. And you can look at these statistics. I'll send them slides to you, as I said. Oops. So all of this, drunkenness, binge drinking, prevalence of drinking. What about other substances? How about marijuana, for example? Also seeing decreases in use more recently. So in 2021, the first year measured after the pandemic, we see a large and substantial decline in marijuana use, which took place on all grades, 12th, 10th, and 8th grade. So for 12th and 10th grade, we see these declines have continued. 12th grade levels in 2024 were the lowest in the past 3 decades at 26% and 16%, respectively. That's in other words, 26% for the 12th graders. That's 1 in 4 still using cannabis. 1 in 4 is still quite high using cannabis behind alcohol. Cannabis use very common. That's the 12th graders, and 16% in the past 12 months of 10th graders using cannabis. And for 8th graders, it was down to 7%. How about nicotine vaping? We see 2024 declines, and this is a 180-degree turn centered around the pandemic. Large declines took place during the pandemic in vaping of nicotine. The past 12 months use was 21% for 12th graders, but still we're talking about 1 in 5 12th graders using vaping nicotine. We saw 1 in 4 using marijuana among the 12th graders. But look at that's compared to 35% in 2020. So you can see the declines, and that's happening in most, if not all, of the grades. And then lastly, trends in abstinence. Now, abstaining in all 3 substances, that's not using alcohol, marijuana, or nicotine. And you can see in 2024, the levels of lifetime abstinence significantly increased, particularly among the 8th grades, continued a multi-year upward trend for the 10th and 12th grades. So in 2024, the levels were the highest recorded ever since the survey, the Monitoring Future survey began. 72% of 12th graders reporting abstinence of all 3 substances. 58% of 10th graders, and that's the other way around. 72%. Statistics don't lie. Liars use statistics, or in my case, you can get goofed up with statistics. So anyway, 72% of 8th graders have abstained from all 3 substances. That makes more sense, doesn't it? They always have to check stats to whether they make sense. 58% of 10th graders have abstained, and 42% of 12th graders have abstained from all 3 substances. So those numbers are up. So there's that trend in non-use. At the same time, declining use, we're seeing a trend in non-use. So these changes are perhaps reflecting a normalization of drinking among adolescents. And this is a 2-sided issue here. Again, I'm going to highlight this. So alcohol use among adolescents is becoming denormalized. That's a new term, or less common term than normalization. So alcohol use among adolescents is becoming denormalized, while at the same time, Non-alcohol consumption is becoming normalized. This is a complete flip of the historic use of alcohol among adolescents. So back in the day we're talking about 1999 to 2001, alcohol was almost a compulsory part of adolescent social life. Now it's optional. It's an optional activity, and it's viewed as having high risks and few benefits. So our prevention campaigns, our public health campaigns, our messaging, our lessons are seem to be taking hold among young people. That's my assessment. So light and non-drinking adolescents have reported that they see drinking as incompatible with their academic and sporting goals, their desire to be productive during downtime, and their desire to maintain control and to avoid risks of reputation and health. And these are the messages that we have been providing in prevention and that we provide in our own prevention plus wellness program to adolescents as well as to young adults. And they seem to be having an impact. What's the social meaning of drinking and non-drinking today? Well, it's changing. Drinking is increasingly positioned as risky coping mechanism. So I'm sort of amazed by that, given if you watch Netflix or any streaming movies and series, you'll see constant alcohol consumption, particularly liquor. And that's what I'm noticing. And yet, good news is we're seeing that among young people, alcohol consumption is being viewed as a risky coping mechanism rather than fun and sociable activity. So non-drinking is increasingly positioned as the norm or as a personal choice. And so some of the function of parties and drinking, by the way, are being fulfilled in part because of social media. So social media is having some role in this, believe it or not. So so rather than people getting together physically, they're getting together virtually, and that's could be part of the reason why these denormalization of alcohol and normalization of non-drinking are happening. There's also changes in perceived harmfulness. Just like we saw with the young adults, we're seeing this as well. In other words, the Gallup poll showed this among young adults. There was this increase in perceived harmfulness of even moderate consumption. We're seeing this in the monitoring the future data among adolescents. So perceptions of harmfulness of alcohol use has been increasing over time. And similar to young adults, adolescents may be more risk averse to alcohol's effects, see less benefits, and see harm to mental and physical well-being and self-image, life goals, performance, and happiness. And all of these things we highlight in our sport and other prevention plus wellness programs. So perceived harmfulness of alcohol and drug use in the monitoring the future data. We actually have data on this, so you can see the proportion of perceived great risk of harm from one or two drinks increased from 5% to 29% in 2024 among 12th graders. That is a tremendous increase and perceived great risk of harm for just one or two drinks. That's up to almost a third of 12th graders currently thinking that moderate drinking increases harm significantly, greatly. Also, we see perceived great risk in weekend binge drinking was 43% in 2024. That's a significant increase from 2021, which is 34%. So great increases in perceived risk of binge drinking. Similarly, we see perceived risk of harm among regular use of marijuana has increased significantly. Well, it increased 4.5%. And that was a significant change, up to 36%. So over a third of, I think, 12th graders, we're talking about, although I don't see that, a third I believe 12th graders said that they believe marijuana increase risks. There's risk to that. That's up from 2021. And then also perceived risk for regular nicotine vaping also increased to 54%. Over half of adolescents believe that vaping is harmful compared to, well, that's up 4% from 2023. So we're seeing a trend, increase in perception of harmfulness, alcohol, marijuana, vaping, e-cigarettes. Social media and other media connections are a role, as I said earlier. Spending more time online could be a factor. So there's less physical getting together and therefore opportunities for drinking. That's part of it as well. Most teens credit social media with feeling more connected, and yet, remember, we see 1 in 5, about 20%, say social media sites hurt their mental health. So there is that, the good and the bad of the social media. And these authors, and there's the link under item number 3, state that there's a need to strengthen young people's social relationships, sense of belonging, and connectedness to peers, to school, and to the community. That's a Pew Research report. So let's go ahead and delve in a little bit more into the implications of all of these findings in the Gallup poll for adults and young adults, to the monitoring the future data with students, primary students in 12th, 10th, and 8th grades. Let's look at the implications for prevention and public health. So main findings, we're seeing perceived harmfulness increase. Alcohol consumption declines appear linked to increases in both young adult and adolescents' perceived harmfulness. I already mentioned that. Impacted by perhaps a greater awareness of alcohol damage effects from the reports of new research showing that even moderate consumption, 1 or 2 drinks, can increase risk to one's health. And even moderate use, as I said, yes, can be more harmful. So that's a change. I mean, in the past, and it's been my experience, we've highlighted particularly how harmful, particularly heavy use, and that is true. Heavy use, binge drinking, getting drunk is more harmful. It does increase. That's where the greatest risk is with regard to negative outcomes and addiction and so on. Nonetheless, now the focus is on moderate use also being more harmful than believed to be in the past. Targeting perceptions of harmfulness, we're seeing this in not just research and reports of research, but social media. And this highlights the need for prevention programs to aim at increasing youth awareness and perceptions of the myriad of risks. We have done that and done it for decades, but here's a refocus on that, and that's probably why we're seeing the declines that we're seeing. But a little caveat here is under number 1 at the end of that paragraph, at the end of that sentence, is that also highlighting the broader harm to their desire to live productive and fulfilled and happy lifestyles. I believe that's a newer message, and I think it's very much resonating with young people, whether they be young adults or adolescents or even children. So, for example, the Sport Prevention Plus Wellness (PPW) program highlights messages about how alcohol and other drugs harms physical activity and you being physically active, nutrition, and eating healthy, getting adequate sleep, and controlling stress, and achieving related positive desired future images of themselves. And so this is, I think, very, very salient messaging and impactful messaging, because we do see it in our sport and all of the sport adaptations of our programs. We see increases in perception of perceived risk from substances. Even if we focus on sport, which addresses largely alcohol, we'll also see increased perceptions of harm from other substances because we measure 5 of them: cannabis, tobacco use, opioids, and e-cigarettes. For young adults as well, perhaps we could spend a little bit more time focusing on these new phenomena: social curious and mindful drinking. Those concepts can have real implications for young people, for us prevention providers. The main finding in non-drinking is that non-drinking is becoming more normalized in American society. Targeting for non-drinking, a couple things to think about: communicating young people the appealing and the salient benefits of avoiding all alcohol use. Sport does this by engaging in, avoiding something or reducing something. I believe is more challenging than adding something. Adding something to a diet is easier than taking something away. And so the messaging we use at PPW under number 2, for example, with sport is that we talk about engaging in healthy lifestyle benefits. And this increases your motivation and desire for future images and being more fit, active, healthy, successful. Those are image terms. So we're adding to the prevention messages by focusing on improving these health behaviors that changes how they feel about themselves, influences their substance use in a positive way by reducing it, and is highly motivational to them. Promoting alternative activities is a part of this. This could be healthy behaviors like getting more physical activity or any structured activity. Anything that young people can engage in that's not substance use can lend themselves to alcohol. Something that doesn't lend themselves to alcohol use, but does promote personal enhancement and overall wellness and even socialization. So PPW programs, that's prevention plus wellness programs for youth. We have our youth and our adolescents, young adults, children create short-term goals and use calendar logs focused on the health behaviors while also committing to non-use of substance use. So that's a strategy that works well by targeting non-drinking, the health habits, and alternative behaviors. Adolescent extracurricular and social activities are very important. Participating in, extracurriculars, events, art, music, anything creative, work, school, nature. We can go on, but anything, and particularly something that's structured, that's overseen by an adult, very, very important, and contributes to perceptions of risk of harm from binge drinking, according to the study under number 1. So ensuring equitable, ensuring equitable resources to develop these opportunities for young people in schools and college campuses and communities is very important. Prevention strategies that support peers, social relationships, and social networking are needed, particularly those that are positive. Now, that's a double-edged sword because social networking, negative networks, with high-risk individuals or substance-using individuals can be negative. So you want to have, again, it's important to have these extracurricular activities be overseen by a trained adult. There's also a need for cannabis use, more cannabis use prevention and intervention for young adults. We've already talked about that. We're seeing young adults, some of them, particularly college students, using marijuana as an alternative to alcohol. They view it as less harmful, more helpful than alcohol, maybe less risky, maybe as an alternative or substitute, as I said. And this trend may continue to grow with expanding legalization across the country. We're seeing this again, just to reiterate, this typical daily use of cannabis use. So we need to have motivational interventions to turn that around because we're going to see more young people addicted, cannabis use addiction. And our In Shape Prevention Plus Wellness program for college students and young adults has shown that even though the focus is a little bit more on alcohol and drugs in general, reduced marijuana use and even heavy marijuana use. So that's a good strategy, the In Shape program for young adults. At the same time, we're seeing the need, I believe we'll see the need, greater need for cannabis use prevention, marijuana use prevention, whatever you want to call it, among younger adolescents. We don't see the use increasing at this point, but with expanded legalization and availability and marketing, I think it's just a matter of time before we see an increase in marijuana consumption among adolescents. So now's the time for prevention providers to preempt the potential, the existing significant potential for increases in cannabis use by upping our cannabis prevention among adolescents. Now's the time to increase that effort. Final thoughts? An effective strategy for preventing future youth cannabis and other drug use would be to focus on prevention programs that target risks of substance use to their health, and I would add broader outcomes, lifestyle, future, happiness, effectiveness, success, etc. Their desired images of themselves. Also, number two, promoting the benefits of non-use, and then related opportunities for alternative activities that increase non-use for living a full life, a productive life, a happy life. Very, very important. And then lastly, more holistic strategy and programs that integrate alcohol and drug use prevention and intervention with more protective, not just risk, but also more protective, healthy behavior, lifestyle, and wellness promotion for young people. That's the trend. That's the need, more holistic kind of prevention. So that's it. We've covered a lot here. Here's the question for you. I want you all to participate if you can. If you've got some ideas, here's the question. And you can put your answers in the chat space. If you have some ideas, please share them with all of us. Love to hear from you. What other suggestions do you have for future prevention actions based on what we've just learned about how alcohol use has been declining in the United States? Do you have any things that we haven't touched on today? I know we've touched on a lot of things, but what is your opinion or your thoughts on this? What have you learned from the declines in U.S. alcohol use among adults and young adults, and the declines in alcohol, cannabis, and vaping nicotine among adolescents? What do you think? Give us your thoughts in the chat space. I'm going to turn to the chat space right now and see what we can find you guys are adding. So let me see here. I'm going to go back far enough so that we don't miss any. Oh, a lot of feedback here. Oh, well, some of this is this otter thing. I don't know what that is. What is that? Tina is on basic otter. I know it's something I'm not that technologically savvy. Oh, here we go. I mean, I may have to take a moment after we're done and cut and paste some of this and share this with you all. Or I don't know if we had I'm not sure the AI is on where we could have recorded all of this. So we see some people are still introducing themselves. Let's see, let's at a distance, health promotion support, 4 years of war in Ukraine. Yes, I'm so sorry to hear about that. That is definitely and our prayers to you in dealing with that. And and it's amazing we have you and others from Ukraine while they're in the midst of an actual war. Thank you for joining us. Um, and we wish you safety there. Let me see, I'm going down and seeing if we could find anything, and I'm going to read some of these. Addictive youth behavior in Ukraine. Okay, some feedback you can are of special issue of the day during the war. I can't imagine. I guess I can imagine. Yes, because of the unbelievable stress. So our best to you, and we hope you can remain safe um, and do some prevention. And if we can help, let us know. Let's see. Thanks. Okay. Which society would recognize that alcohol is very worse? It's the cause of many tickets to be paid. Domestic violence. Violence is just being normalized in a way that cannot be touched by, hopefully, with time. And yes, Laura, I think we're seeing the benefits of your work and our work in denormalizing alcohol consumption and normalizing non-use. So thanks for that comment. We need a change. Ellen says we need a change in advertising of alcohol. Good point. We have a general way of approach it to be regulated. Regulation, like tobacco, good point. Need for regulation of all substances, particularly as we see coming on board cannabis use and the access of that marketing by young people. And social media promoting things such as vaping. We need to have more regulation of that marketing and those pro substance use messages to young people. I think most of you will agree with that. Continue prevention efforts for alcohol prevention. Don't stop just because we have a decline. Heather says, good for you, Heather. I appreciate that. Yes, and we got to get ahead on the marijuana prevention. Thank you. Amber says they are note taken. Oh, AI notes taken. Okay, maybe that is. So I'll share that with everybody. Ideally, let's see. Monica says ideally there would be new policies. Two ideas. Massachusetts are introducing labeling alcohol that it causes breast cancer and increases alcohol and increase alcohol excise tax. So yes, we do know research shows changes in labeling and taxing does reduce use without a doubt. Is this Brendan says, I think it would be important to respond to whatever the big alcohol companies do to address declining consumption, whether it means pivoting to other substances as they profit off or finding new ways to advertise. Good points. And again, I go back to the example I give you of my experience earlier in Minnesota this year, where we went to a microbrewery or whatever they're called. And so we actually saw the most popular drink was not the beer, although the good news is they had a regularly, I guess, a popular non-alcoholic beer, but it was the THC beverage that they were selling. That was the number one beverage that young people were purchasing. For young adults, have more education seminars. Sheila says, very good. Ellen says, yes, I agree. Brendan, they're moving toward targeting kids with their marketing. That's the trend with all substances. We see that first adults and then kids. And we're seeing that, with first alcohol and tobacco and alcohol and e-cigarettes and marijuana. Very encouraged that the prevention efforts are paying off, Katie says, and so am I. Continued prevention work can effectively bring youth, young adult numbers down almost to zero. Positive culture norms messaging around very powerful too. And I would say, feel free to share these slides with others in your community or state, wherever you're at. I think because it's a positive messaging, and I think good messaging for actually prevention programs. I mean, because this is actual positive norm messaging that young people should see. And many thanks for the speaker. Yes, you're welcome. My pleasure. Or substance use for fix the normalized use of cannabis. Yes, Aaron says, and others. So if there's some others, I can see if I can share those with you. Thank you all for participating. Greatly appreciated. I'm going to see if there's any comments. There is in the Q&A. Let's take a look at those. So we have Demetrius says, how have changes? I've got my glasses aren't for reading glasses, so I have a little trouble with them. They're just for looking at the screen. So how have changes in public perception, health awareness, or lifestyle norms influenced alcohol use trends among younger generation? Well, I'm not sure what you're referring to by younger. Are you talking about younger than the adolescents? Because we did talk about young adults, we talked about adolescents, so we see the changes in public perception, the increased perception of harmfulness, and the denormalization of alcohol consumption and the normalization of non-use. So we're seeing, and then the reduced substance use almost across the board for adolescents. Good news, and I think positive. And kudos to all of you in the field for making that influence. And where could we learn more about sport PPW? You just simply go to preventionpluswellness.com. Preventionpluswellness.com is our evidence-based sport program for adolescents, and In Shape Prevention Plus Wellness is our evidence-based program for young adults. And they're really, really good tools because they are more holistic strategies. And as we saw here in the literature, they do focus on the trends to addressing greater risk other than just to health that are salient to young people, and then also focusing on promoting broader lifestyle changes which can influence and further help in declines of substance use and improve broader health outcomes, mental and physical, as well as performance and happiness, which young people need. Tanya Toy says, what are effective strategies to assist youth with increasing meaningful in-person engagement while also sharing awareness of potential harms for alcohol? Well, I think there's quite a few suggestions here in this presentation. You could review that. Look at the links to additional information, all the sources of information that are shown in these slides. I think you'll have some more information there. But I think any holistic strategy that addresses not just risk information, but protective, focuses on more positive protective factors, giving youth opportunities to engage in any kind of social networking or structured activities outside of school and communities. That's youth, that's adult overseen, very important. But again, the messaging should be holistic as well with regard to risk, and should be positive. Once you get to the old, in our experience, my experience particularly, once you get to older adolescents, high school in particular, some even middle school, and certainly young adults, they've heard a lot of risk messaging. So it's important to address, what are the benefits of avoiding alcohol use, these broader benefits, and in terms of their overall goals and interests for themselves in the future, and getting them to think about the future through goal setting and positive motivational interventions like Prevention Plus Wellness. All right, I'm biased though. I'm biased about PPW. I'm all for PPW, and if you haven't checked it out, please do go to Prevention Plus Wellness and check it out. And in fact, there's some more information right there. Right there, you can learn more. You can click on that. That will take you to our what? Our page's mission. That's all. But look at our blogs. We got a great blog. We got under resources. We got all kinds of free information. And if you want to request a free Zoom consult, you can click on that. We can have a little brief conversation. Happy to do that. Thank you so much. So you can reach out to us at preventionpluswellness.com. You can reach me at info@preventionpluswellness.com if you want to email me or call me here at the office in beautiful historic St. Augustine. We're very, very fortunate to be here. Come visit us, 904-472-5022. And I hope you're all well and you're going to have a wonderful holiday and Christmas season. And do come back, do look at our stuff, but do come back for some more webinars in January. By the way, we will also be at CADCA, at the CADCA Forum. We'll be exhibiting. Look for our booth. I think it's 404 is the number, if I'm not mistaken. And we'd love to see you and talk to you. We'll be giving away some really good stuff. And what we'll be doing this year at CADCA is we're going to be demonstrating our programs, how they're implemented. And we'll have a whole bunch of them laid out there so you can look at many of our programs. Thank you. God bless you. Keep up the good work. Stay safe. Help each other. And we'll see you hopefully in the future. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.